This is Row Talk.
So thank you, Natalie, for chatting. We know each other from way back, from when we were kids, went to the same school. And I wanted to talk to you because you're a yoga instructor, and I did yoga for about a year before the pandemic. And I went into it because of, I to put it generally, just chronic body pain from
Okay.
like excessive running. I'm still not sure what is the cause of it, but just by doing some kind of daily exercise routine, I've noticed, like, for example, my hamstrings are getting looser. So that's kind of the focus for me right now. So I went into that because of pain and mobility, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, how did you get into yoga? Like, did you and take a class randomly?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah, actually, yoga has been like a really long sort of and random sporadic journey for me. Like now it's definitely like a consistent, like pretty consistent practice in my life. But when I first started, actually a friend in university introduced me to yoga and she was like, all right, like, come on, Nat, we got to go to this class. You're going to like it. And it was just like a random class on campus. I was doing part of my undergrad at Carleton in Ottawa. And it was like, it wasn't so much like, when you go to a studio and they like kind of have, I guess it depends on the studio and the teacher, but like it's more like official when you're in a studio space. We were in a studio space at this class, but it was more of like a workshop kind of style class, like for beginners, which was perfect because like even going to yoga classes after that, I was like, oh my gosh, what are they trying to tell me to do? And you're like looking at other people, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, am I doing this right? Like, so yeah, like the first class that I did was that kind of random workshop style, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is cool. And then probably like maybe a couple months after that, she convinced me to go to a hot yoga class, and
Oh.
that was like the hardest thing of my life. I don't think I have ever sweat that much before, and I was like, whoa, like what was that? So yeah, and I did like it, but I found it like very challenging. And but I don't know, it was just like something about doing that. Like I just felt so good after, and like um probably like basically a detox, you sweat out all like, your university hangovers. But like, yeah, I don't know, it was just like a really good feeling. But I didn't really get into it in university because, like, as a student, it's already like you got your student loans and you're scraping by with your groceries and stuff. So I didn't get to go that often because, like, the studios that I wanted to join were just so expensive. So I'd go like once a month or so, and it was just like kind of my, I don't want to call it sacred time, but like, it was kind of like the thing I looked forward to. That was just like, I'm doing that for my health. So that's kind of like how it started. And then there's definitely times where like I took a lot of time off. Like I just didn't do yoga for like months at a time because like life is busy sometimes, right? Or
Yeah.
it's just like easy to set your wellness kind of on the back burner, I think. Um, which I'm sure like you've experienced that too, probably with like running and stuff, even like you kind of take a break sometimes, or your body forces you to, right? From like injury or pain. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. What was your first experience with yoga like?
That is a great question. I'm not exactly sure how I got into it. I do remember what I was working near Ottawa in the town of Perth.
Oh yeah.
For Have you been to Perth?
Yeah, I know where it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, cool. Anyway,
Random, right? Yeah.
yeah, you're the first person that's like, yeah, I know Perth.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
um, the Sunflower Bake Shop is really good. Whoever's in Perth watching this or listening. Anyway, yeah, I was in Perth. I was working, and somehow I got into like watching videos about meditation and spirituality and stuff like that on YouTube. And I was in a house with a bunch of students. So I had just graduated from university, from the University of Waterloo. It was my first job after graduating. But there was a college, Algonquin College, there in Perth, which has a lot of students doing carpentry and woodworking, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I was in a house with 8 students in that program, or a couple of the programs. So anyway, one of these students said there's a yoga class, and like half of us went. So that's the first one I can remember. I might have gone earlier, but anyway, it was tough. We were doing simple stuff, but like I had trouble crossing my legs and sitting down. So they
Yeah.
suggested you sit on a yoga block, or you kind of build up a platform to sit on. So
Yeah.
I did that there. I think I went back to another class a year later or something, but the second class I went to had music. And personally, I found it really distracting because I was
Okay.
listening to the music, because, the instructors was telling us to relax, but all I could think about was, what song is this? You know?
That's
So,
hilarious.
um, but those are just kind of like sporadic times that I tried it out. But
Yeah.
I committed for a year here in London. There's a studio in downtown called Yoga Center London.
Oh,
It's
cool.
across from Williams, um, on the second floor above this fashion shop. So I just did a Google search, and they were in London for about 20 years. So I went. They teach Iyengar yoga. Uh, I don't know much about the different styles, but basically there was an 8-week cycle. And
Yeah.
every week, once a week for an hour and a half, they would teach like 5 to 8 poses. And then you would just kind of sit in that pose, and the instructor would adjust you if you needed some adjusting. So I did that for a year, and I found that useful. Um, yeah, but that's kind of that was probably the most valuable experience, just having something to do every week, and knowing, all right, I'm committing an hour and a half a week to better health, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah. Like figuring your body out kind of. It's
yeah.
it's cool. I think I know, actually think potentially the owner of that studio um, taught part of my instructor certification course, or she came in as a guest speaker. I'm pretty sure.
Karen,
I've What's
I think her
that?
name was. I think her name was Karen. What's her name?
Yes, I think so. I think she came in as a guest speaker and talked about Iyengar yoga and stuff. And I've never been, but we did a little bit of like, I guess she talked more about like shoulder stands and stuff, and like cushions, and using like these wall props. I don't know if they have like those ropes and stuff attached to the wall.
Yep,
Yeah.
I love
I've
those.
never got into it. I've always kind of wanted to try it, but I've just done like sort of the basic hatha style yoga, which is kind of just like that umbrella for like the generic poses, I guess, that you would do in like a yoga shack studio, or like a moto yoga.
Mm. Yeah, this one, they had 3 levels. So I started in level 1, which is the simple stuff. So there's no headstands or anything like that. And I was just starting level 2, where they were teaching headstands. So like, just to get into it, they would ask you to kind of uh, like not do it, but get into the motion. Just like
Yeah,
getting your head and um, getting your butt up in the air to make that triangle.
yeah,
I think we did eventually do it, but anyway, yeah, they use a lot of props, and it's pretty. That's what I liked about it, because it kind of helps to figure out where you need to work on in terms of
Yeah.
tightness. And yeah, I haven't kept up with that practice, which is sad. But they also moved online. And yeah, I tried an online class. I feel like for me, I don't know. I'm just, whenever they go back to in class, I would love to go back.
Yeah, it's tough. Like honestly, I think too, like part of yoga is like creating that space. Like it, at least for me, not everybody finds that important, but I do think it's important to create the space for yourself. Like, if you have a setup, you're more likely to just kind of wander into it when you need it and just kind of practice without thinking about it. Whereas like if you don't have a space set up to do it at home, then you kind of have this whole like, oh, I gotta put out my mat, like where am I gonna do it, do I have to move some stuff out of the way? So like that's one thing that I just like made a priority when I finally had the space to do it, was like, okay, I need to have a corner where like my stuff can be out all the time, especially like during the pandemic, because before that, like I was going to Moto Yoga downtown, or their West location, which is like a newer studio within the last few years or so. But um, yeah, I do miss going into the studios, and I know they're open, but I just like haven't gotten back into that, I guess, personal practice in the studio, because I just like I've been doing this at home for the last two
Yeah.
years now, and it's been good. But going online, I kind of went off on a tangent there, sorry.
Yeah,
But
no
like
worries.
going online is hard because like, as a student, you have like to adjust to sort of like the technical aspect of it too. It's not the same hearing an instructor's voice through a computer as it is in person. You're very much on your own at home. It's difficult to see what your students are doing online as well. So like, you don't necessarily have someone coming around and saying, hey, like you need to just move your knee in a little bit, or
Yeah.
like help with your alignment and stuff. So that's one of the things that I was worried about, like shifting from in person to online. I was like, oh man, like this is not going to be great, and people aren't going to want to stick with this. And it's true, like some people try it and they're like, yeah, I love this and it's great. I love doing it at home because I can just, turn on my computer and do my practice and then shut it and carry on with the next thing. But other people really miss that like in-person space, like including myself. I miss that, but yeah.
Yeah, I can see that because when the lockdowns are going on and all the studios in class were shut down, I was okay because uh during this whole lockdown I've been living with my family, so just from a general well-being perspective, it's like I could miss yoga practice because I have a support system. But
Yeah.
for some people, it's like you said, it's kind of that space where you go to figure out your body. It's I don't I guess I would say it's a meditative experience, but more importantly, it's like a time dedicated to your health. And when that's taken away, it's like such a burden to
Oh yeah.
figure out a whole new setup. It's like, oh, what is Zoom? How do you Zoom?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Zoom yoga. It's something. I do love it. It's been like, especially during the winters, it's been a really nice way to be able to still like engage with my students. But like during the summer, so I guess to sort of go back to like my beginning, I started teaching like and just sort of doing my own little yoga business at the, I guess, the first summer of the pandemic. So what would that have been? Summer 2020.
yeah.
So my friends and family kind of like convinced me to do it. I had done my instructor certification the year before, and I had taught a couple times at like Bowler here in London, and I didn't love it just because it's different. And I also just I work full time too, so it was really hard to like um, kind of like work that into my schedule and be on call. I felt like guilty if I couldn't take a class or something. Um, so I was like, oh, I need to figure out how I can do this like on my own and, you know, bring the practice like to my own place, my own space. But I had this like image in my head, like, okay, I need to have like a studio space and things need to be perfect and before I can like invite people to do yoga with me. But then I just started brainstorming, and my family and friends were like, come on, Nat, like, you got to teach us some yoga. We want to do yoga with you. And I'm like, oh, like, I don't know, guys, like one day, one day. And then I was literally laying in bed one night and I was like, oh, I guess like I could have people over to the backyard to do yoga. Like, what's wrong with that? Um, but then I like started creating barriers for myself again. I'm like, oh, people don't want to do yoga on the grass. Like it's wobbly, like it's not the
Mhm.
same as being on a floor, you know? And then I was like, wait, like what if I make these boards that people can stand on? So I went and got all these like massive plywood boards and painted them all. And they are a pain in the butt to lug in and out of the garage every time I do a class, but everybody loves them and they do make a difference. So like when I don't take them out, everyone's like, "Where are the boards?" I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
"My arms are tired." So, but yeah, it ended up like being like, "Wow, I guess I was creating barriers for myself to like and excuses not to do it, you know, and being
Yeah.
like, oh, what I have now is not good enough." But it was fine. And we've got like twinkle lights set up and like my little veggie garden. And so the ambiance is there in the summer. It's pretty nice, minus, you know, the occasional neighbor that decides to mow their lawn in the middle of a class.
Oh no.
That happens, or like the squirrels like start making these crazy noises and I'm like, oh, sorry guys. Let the sounds fade into the distance.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. That's cool. So yeah, you wanted to start teaching, and friends and family were important in that they kept kind of reminding you. It's like, hey, I know you want to do this. Just
yeah,
go for it.
yeah,
And I remember seeing uh, a picture or two on Instagram. It was a nice vibe. You had the lights in your backyard and the grass. So yeah, so that's cool. Um, and that was the start of it all. That would have been in 2020, the summer of the pandemic. And you're still teaching now. I mean, for now, it's probably just online because of the temperature outside.
yeah,
So, um, yeah, it's cool that it's been going on for a year and a half now, and that sounds like you're still enjoying it. Um, yeah. So as for the online classes, I'm sure you have a lot of students that are still there because some people like the online because it is you can do it from anywhere. Um, so how like what have you like what's how is the online versus the in class in terms of um, I don't know, just like generally, how's that experience?
yeah. So I was really like, the first summer, I was like, all right, that's it, right? This is going to be a seasonal thing because obviously we're not going to do yoga outside in the snow.
Yeah.
um, but my students really wanted to keep going. And I was like, okay, well, you know, I just was very transparent with them to say, like, I would love to keep teaching you, but really the only option, you know, for this winter will be to go onto Zoom and to do it online. And that's not quite the same experience. Um, And then I just said to them, like, and that will be an investment for me because I'll have to like pay for the platform. And um, I ended up having to like set up a booking system as well because administration was just like a lot of time. And I was so tired trying to like coordinate like who was coming to class and like accepting payments and stuff like manually. So um, I had to kind of look into that whole aspect of things, like how do I get it so that people can manage their own signups basically. And it's better for them too, right? Because then they don't have to, they're not obligated to let me know what's going on. They can just go online and like change their classes if they want to. Um, but yeah, so I really just started out by saying like, okay, I need to know if you guys are committed and interested in like carrying on with this. And so everyone was like, yeah, we want to keep going. And we went on to Zoom, and some people stayed, and some people were like, yeah, I think the in person is my thing. And that's totally cool. Like, I get it. Even the first couple classes, like, you don't get that same like feedback that you get in person, like where in person you can see when people are like really engaged and enjoying what you're doing. When you're online, it's kind of like you're just speaking into the void,
Yeah.
right? So and you don't get that same like chat and socialization after class, or even like the opportunity to like help the students as much because um, like I like to leave them with their shavasana at the end of class so that they kind of get like a little bit of a meditation uh, slash time to be mindful. That's like super important to me because that's one of the things that I've always taken away from yoga is like the beginning and the end of class is sort of just like that time to like decompress and let your mind be like completely free of anything and everything.
Mhm.
So I like to leave my students with that. But yeah, at the end of class, online, you don't know like how your students are feeling after class, or, you know, if they had any challenges with a certain pose. So I do try to like text my students and say like, hey, how was your class tonight? Just every once in a while to see how they're doing and stuff. But yeah, it's very different. And the only reason I love it is because my students love it too. And I always just say to them like, thanks so much. You guys are the reason that I keep going with this because you're asking for it. Um, and it brings me to the mat too, right? Like it makes me want to keep
Yeah.
learning and like bringing them new postures and new sequences. And my style tends to be like a little bit slower. I like to take the time to get alignment right. That's super important to me because I've just had experiences in classes where you don't necessarily figure out, you're like, what was I supposed to get from that pose? Like, I don't
Mhm.
know, like you didn't experience a sensation. So I'm very much into like taking the time to get that alignment right, and also to use blocks and blankets and that kind of thing in the practice to make yourself, I guess, come back to like a gentle variation if you don't necessarily have the mobility to go like right into like the deepest possible variation of a pose. So
Mhm.
even like you said, like sitting cross-legged, like that's usually like when someone comes to their first yoga class, you're like, holy moly, like, whoa, I have no flexibility. Like I can't sit
Yeah.
cross-legged. And so you just say, yeah, sit on a block or a cushion, get those hips up, and that will help you. And then over time your body adjusts and you can eventually come down onto the ground, right? So yeah, I just totally went off on it.
No, it's a important point about getting the alignment right. So, in my experience, this goes back to running and being in the gym. When I was younger, I would focus on the mantra, not exactly, but kind of around you always have to push yourself. That's how you get faster, stronger. If you do that enough, you kind of realize it's like just because you can, for example, pull off a heavy squat you, you don't know for sure that you're using the proper technique. So for example, like if you arc your back too much, you might be setting yourself up for injury later. um, so when I figured that out, that was kind of one of the reasons that brought me into yoga practice. Just doing repeated postures, like the different warrior poses, or even the mountain pose, which I think is just kind of stand with your 2 feet together and put your arms out. You just notice the imbalance, like, oh, my right's, I'm always falling over on the left side. Okay, so it's one thing to know that intellectually, but it's the practice that you do repeatedly that
Mhm.
first of all reminds you, and uh, gives you the opportunity to dedicate time to figuring out that balance. So yeah, I think when you were talking about alignment, that's what I was thinking of. It's That's important, and that's why personally I'm hesitant to do the online courses, because I know I'm not balanced, so I don't want to do something wrong when there's no
Yeah.
one around. um, on the flip side, someone who's comfortable, it's probably a great benefit, because it's like either they're flexible or they have a good idea what to do, and they just need someone to kind of guide them through that process. So yeah, I can see the advantages of both online for some people and in class for others.
Yeah, and I think too, one of the other benefits of online is like yoga can be kind of intimidating, like to just go to your first yoga class. Like I feel like one experience that a lot of people have in common is like somebody took them to a yoga class and that's how they
Oh yeah,
started, you know?
it's true.
And which was my experience. You said the same thing. And
Yep.
I think it's like, I kind of compare it to like dance almost, just because
Mhm.
it's almost like a choreographed, like, sequence of movements, right? And it's like, I personally, I could not do Zumba. Like, I just can't process like those
Yeah.
movements fast enough. I'm like, what is going on, But I do think like yoga is intimidating because it's like how do you know if you're putting your foot over your head the right way, or like three-legged dog, what's that? And you know, in our 200-hour training, teachers are like encouraged to use like the Sanskrit names of postures. So
Mhm.
I think even that in itself can be intimidating if you go to a class, just to be like, okay, you're speaking a different language to me now,
Oh yeah.
too, right? And yeah, it's funny, like it takes time to get into it, but coming back to like being new to yoga and being able to just do it in your own home, and like maybe, if you're doing a YouTube video, you can press pause and be like, okay, how do I get into that? Or you can just pause yourself and watch what the teacher's doing and like the demonstration, and you can go like, all right, I don't think I want to do that, I'm not ready for that. And you don't feel as awkward as you might like in a room full of people, right? Because you're like, it's that natural like human desire to want to be the same. Like you don't want to be the
Mhm.
one person who's just sitting there and everybody else is in downward facing dog.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's important, right? Because it is such an individual practice. Like literally everybody is so different. And like even bone structure can affect your ability to do certain postures, right? So you might practice one thing your whole life and never be able, like the splits, for example, like,
Mhm.
it's not always ideal for everybody to be able to do that. Like,
Okay.
I have a friend who's a dancer, and she's, I was talking to her about that, and I was like, like I really want to get my splits, but like I just don't, I've been doing it, trying to get it for like a year now, and it's just like not happening. And she's like, don't bother. She's like, I forced myself to be able to do the splits like growing up dancing. And she goes, now I have major hip problems. Like her hip
Oh.
pops out and stuff all the time. And like, I'm like, all right, you know what? Practically speaking, I guess, you're probably right. I'm going to have to let that one go. So yeah, I don't know. Yoga online, benefits to it being at home in your own space. You don't have the commute time. You've got like that privacy
Yeah.
to be at your level, how you want to be. But again, you also miss that like social in-person space. But I always just like students um, like take the time to set up your space before your practice if you can, like, and if you enjoy it, light a candle. If you like music, which now I know you don't actually.
Oh, well, not in a class.
While you're doing yoga, it's distracting. But
Yeah.
like I just say play like some soft music in the background. But like create your space. Like there's a
Yeah.
little bit of a routine to it, right? A kind of a regiment that feels nice to go in with intention and be like, all right, I'm going to like set my stage here, because it kind of is like you do need a bit of that ambiance to zen out, if you will.
So you mentioned you had to go through 200 hours of training for your certification. So yeah, can you talk more about that? Like, is there an organization that certifies you? Is there a collective, a group, and how do they kind of, with so many different styles of yoga, it's like, how does that work?
Yeah, yeah. I always like dreamed that I would go do my 200 hours in like, Costa Rica, or go to like an ashram in like India or something. Like that would be so cool. But I kind of ended up doing my 200 hours much different than I thought I would. But it turned out to be really a good thing. So I did my 200 hours with a school called the Internal Peace Initiative here in London. And when I say school, it's not like a brick and mortar place you can go. It's literally like a yoga curriculum that my instructors had created, right? So
Mhm.
um, this program was specifically set up to do over the course of, I think it was 9 months. And so once a month, Saturday and Sunday, we would go. They were hosting it at One London Place at the time. So we'd go there, and we had like a room with like a little kitchenette and everything. And start early in the morning, and they were like 12-hour days, but we were like literally on our mats
Wow.
the whole time. Like it was like pretty intense and very like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like condensed
Yeah.
programming. Um, but what was nice about it was like after that weekend, I could go back into my everyday life and like work some of the things that I learned in my class into everyday
Mhm.
life. So bringing like some of the basic values that, are part of yoga, um, just into like, you know, everyday life situations. So when you get stressed out, knowing like what are the signs of experiencing stress, or like your parasympathetic nerve, which you learn about being affected by that like fight or flight response, right? So
Mhm.
that nerve is in your body, and it basically becomes, I guess, activated when you're in the flight mode, when you're like super stressed and anxious. And so knowing like what those basically symptoms are, and being able to like say, oh, like I could use like a breathing technique to work through this, or I could go into child's pose, for example. um Maybe not at the grocery store, but like
That would
but
be
like
yeah.
yeah. And I mean there's like things like do no harm, which is like, just be, I guess, like a true yogi would not kill a spider. You would release your spider outside back into the wild. Like, you know, um, there's things like um, not to steal, but like they teach you that stealing can be not necessarily like taking someone's belongings, but even someone's time, right?
Yes.
Or energy, like to just go and vent to somebody can, do you need to do that? So anyways, that's why I really liked this course, was because it was just like really easy to build it into my everyday life. And I didn't really realize that at the time. I was like, man, this is really hard. And I wish I had just gone on vacation to do this for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But it was very beneficial in the long run. So internal peace initiative, Elena and Richard were my teachers' names, and they were like very focused on trauma sensitive yoga, which is basically like just being mindful with the way you teach, providing those variations, like gentle variations, which obviously has contributed a lot to how I teach now. But also like with your language and stuff, like not to say like but, because like that could trigger somebody if they've had like a horrible experience in their life, or like, I don't know, just certain things that can be like, I guess, triggering to people. So it was a different program in that sense. They focused a lot on those types of things, and meditation and mindfulness as well. So yoga, I guess through them, they would have created that curriculum underneath the Yoga Alliance, I believe. So the Yoga Alliance has to like approve their curriculum once they've created it, and they have to follow like a certain number of guidelines and include certain aspects. So you would see very common things, like foundational things in like different 200-hour programs, but they can also put their own spin on things as well, right? To like set them apart from a different yoga school. So yeah, I'd say like if I was ever giving someone advice to go do their 200 hours, I would say like, meet with the teachers that you're going to be learning from, maybe even do some of their classes, because they'll build the curriculum around the things that are important to them as teachers too.
Okay. Yeah. So your 200 hours then, like you said, came from once a week doing like a 12-hour intense condensed session over however many months that it took. And yeah, that sounds pretty intense. Like a whole day of mat work and
2 days.
oh, it was Saturday, Sunday. Oh wow.
Saturday, Sunday, once a month. Yeah, yeah,
Oh my
for
goodness.
9 months. Yeah, so those were long weekends for sure.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, definitely you need to be dedicated to get through those 9 months because yeah, I mean, yeah, you must have really wanted to be an instructor. Otherwise, they'll kind of weed out the people who don't want to get through that whole thing.
yeah, actually, yeah, absolutely. There was some people that get to the second one and they're like, I can't do this right now. Like this is a lot. And I felt that way at times for sure. I was like, I don't know why I'm doing this.
That's
But
like whenever you question why you're doing something, it's a good indication that not all the time, but sometimes, I don't know the percentage, but it's a good indication that you should just keep going through it, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
I agree. I agree. It's tough though, right? Because you're like automatically you're like, okay, I'm questioning this because like maybe this is not a good idea, but it's so good to go outside your comfort zone sometimes, right? Like maybe not all the time, but this was definitely outside my comfort zone. But I had really wanted to do it for a long time. Like
Mhm.
I think probably since I had basically discovered yoga in university, I was like, wow, this would be really cool to be able to like teach people this and share this with others. And I actually like I grew up coaching ski racing and stuff, so like
Okay.
I kind of and I've always enjoyed that like aspect of being able to like help people improve with their like skiing. So I think like being able to learn how to do that with yoga was like super important to me too. And
Mhm.
just like I think there's like a huge healing aspect to yoga as well, that like it's so much more than just a workout if you want it to be. Like, it can make your day better. Like if you're having a tough day,
Mhm.
and you feel like really tired and like fatigued and stuff, like doing a 20-minute practice can literally change that or turn it around for you, because you just kind of like your mindset and just kind of like, I guess ultimately, like in a scientific way, you're resetting your parasympathetic nerve, so you're taking breath and taking yourself out of that sort of state of panic, which is really hard to do, right? Like I think
Yeah.
it's even hard to acknowledge that you're there in the first place sometimes. But yeah, it it was a cool program. I actually found out about it from my mom, who went through and did it as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so and she found out about it through a couple of her friends. And I was like, I don't want to do the same thing my mom did. Like, ugh.
That's funny.
But it's actually nice that I did, because like we kind of share that together now as well. And um, it was good to know somebody that did it beforehand too, to be like, okay, like
Right.
is this a program that's going to get me to where I need to be, like
Right.
teaching, and a good investment basically. But yeah, it's nice that I learned about it from my mom, and we had the same teachers. They loved that too. They were always like, "Oh, it's so nice that you're doing the chorus after your mom." But yeah, yeah, it's a cool
Yeah.
experience for sure. And like I at that point I would not have said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be teaching yoga on Zoom and out of my backyard in, 2 years from now."
Mhm. So yeah, you mentioned you work full time and you also have um, this, I mean, I would call it a small business personally. And you mentioned earlier you kind of started setting up classes and doing all the scheduling legwork yourself, probably through texting or email or whatever, scheduling times, managing cancellations, uh, accepting money through whatever means like e-transfers or cash or whatever like that. So um, that's how you started. You're here now, um, and do, do you have plans for the future, or are you just kind of like you want to maintain this setup? Like
Yeah, like
any ideas?
I mean, yeah, I guess I have like, I would always I don't know if I ever want yoga to be like about the money, about
Right.
like the business. It is a small business for sure. But like I wouldn't want to be like make it my 9 to 5, because right now for me it's really just about um sharing something that's made my life better with like the people that want to learn about it, or
Mhm.
want to share that with me too. And I think if I had to say like, um, my dream would be to have like a legitimate studio space like at home, where I could have up to 15 people at a time for class. um, I don't think I would want to like commercialize or anything
Right.
like that. I don't know. But yeah, it's I think that would be sort of like, that would make me happy in itself, just to be able to do that all year round consistently, like not to just be
Mhm.
outside, um, but to have that like indoor space, would be really
Yeah.
really nice. So that, I
The
guess that would be my next
Mhm.
ideal step, but and plan.
Yeah, the reason I ask is um it's kind of a long explanation. So I have my degree in electrical engineering, And after my university, I started working in that field more with electronics, and that was in Perth. I left that job after 2.5 years because, well, kind of ties into everything we've talked about. Um, I had like physical pain. I was kind of living away from family. I tried to figure out, is it just my mood that's the problem? So I started meditating, and then I did that for a few months. I noticed, oh, nothing's really changed. I feel a little better, but like something's missing. So I decided to take a year off and just kind of move back in with the family and figure some stuff out. And just before the pandemic, I did another electronics course at Fanshawe College and started interviewing. And then the pandemic hit, so it kind of made it harder. I'm not sure if it made it harder, but it had an impact on interviews and
The
stuff.
revenge and things. Yeah.
So now it's been 2 years, more than 2 years into the pandemic, and I'm starting to entertain the idea of, what can I do? How do I start a business? So yeah, I don't know what I would provide. Like, in from your perspective, you're providing a service as an instructor, and people want that service, so they come to your classes, and it's a pretty clear exchange of um, goods for or service for money.
Yeah.
So, and I also know that in London there are some private gyms. So like, there are public gyms like a Good Life,
Yeah.
but for some people they like the space. Maybe like there's a private gyms where they'll have exclusive like small number of members,
Yeah.
and that kind of describes what you were saying. Like, you would like to have a small studio up to 15 people to keep it intimate, and it's not your main um, business. It's not like a 9 to 5 main
Yeah.
thing. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm coming from. So that's why I was kind of curious to see what you thought about that. um, I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I really like to hear that. And I kind of, one thing that you said that like sort of resonated with me is that whole like, I know you want a business, but you don't know what you would exchange,
Yeah.
like what it would be. And like I feel that too. Like I I've said that for the longest time. I'm like, yeah, I feel like I could be like entrepreneurial. I would love that, but I'm like, what would I even sell? Like,
Yeah.
is it a store? Is it a service? Is it like a technology that you create? Like, there's so many things that you can do, um, or that you can kind of like fall into, right? And I think the coolest thing is just like following your passion, and that might just kind of unfold for you. Like, I think, yeah, yoga, like I don't know if like I said, I don't want it to be like a business, but it definitely motivates me to keep it as a priority in my life. Which I think that's sort of like a common conversation like in the corporate world, is like, what do you have after work that like fills your cup of joy, like, that's important to have that work life balance. And I love my job, and I enjoy it a lot. So, and it's not something that I like aimed to do after school. I'm just kind of in sales
Mhm.
for 3M, and but it's amazing. Like, it's been such a good career so far, and I wouldn't want to give that up either. So
Yeah.
it's nice to I just kind of call like my yoga stuff like my passion project, um, because it is. And yeah, but I like that you kind of put that to light, like having a private like gym space is almost what that would be.
Yep.
Um, but just the idea of like bringing people together, like a sense of community, like for people who like want to take care of themselves and like want to share that practice, and um, like be able to like talk to other people that have a similar interest, or just encourage each other to keep going, because like things do get hard, and you know it is you don't always have like, not everybody has family as a support system. Um, and so if you can create like a community for people to go to and lean on outside of your, like maybe your regular support system, I think that that's cool too. So it's escaping me right now, but there's a little place actually close by to where I live, and do you know where Purdy Naturals is? It's like over on Mount Pleasant, I think. But there's a little yoga studio in there, and it literally feels like you're just in this like in somebody's home, kind of.
Mhm.
And
Uh,
oh, is it Shangri-La? I think it might be. Okay, sorry. My memory is horrible right now.
no, I'm not even sure where Mount Pleasant is.
Okay, Cowboys. Do you know where Cowboys is?
Yes, is
That's
that's Riverside and on Warncliffe, right?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Major intersection.
Yeah, there's a
But
Mexican restaurant there.
yes, under the volcano. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yes, anyways, great little yoga space and like something that, I'm like, yeah, this would be cool to be able to say if somebody wanted to come just do their own practice even to
Mhm.
like be like, hey, yeah, set up an appointment or something, come on down and use the studio if that's what you want to do, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, um, yeah, one thing I wanted to touch on was what I have kind of inferred from going to classes and talking to instructors like yourself and a couple other people is that uh, everyone's yoga practice is their own, and it has physical health benefits like you can be flexible, mobile, you can create calm, like you were mentioning the parasympathetic nerve. Just doing the correct sequence or postures can ease, for example, some kind of tension on your nerve. Like for me, I have what I presume to be a long withstanding injury, which is I pulled my calf slash hamstring while running a long time ago, like 4 or 5 years ago. I never really took care of it, but I
Yeah,
started to want to really take care of it a couple of years ago. It's been a long process.
yeah.
So um, the most recent thing is what I do is I take a backpack, I put like a rice bag in it, like a what is it called, like an exercise ball. I'll just like stuff it with stuff, so it's like 20 pounds or something, and I'll just walk around the neighborhood and find some kind of incline and go up and down. So it's tough, it tires me out, but I notice my leg feels better. So I don't know what I'm talking about anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, you're working on your injury.
Yeah, yes. So I'm trying to get that balance,
Yeah,
or like make it equally flexible on both sides, and then hopefully get into a good yoga practice. Because for me, like the reason classes are so good is because um, the ones I went to, they would adjust to your needs. But if I'm doing it on my own, I don't know how to do that. Like I'll just kind of push through the
push
stretch
through the
just to,
pain.
yeah.
Yeah,
Or I don't know how to explain it, but basically, it. But my main point was that everyone's practice is their own, and treating whatever physical or mental strain or whatever's going on in your life,
yeah,
you have to kind of cultivate it for yourself. But it's
yeah,
kind of hard to explain that idea in like a couple
yeah,
sentences. Like, for example, people ask, why do you run? It's like, oh, running's good for you. No one will kind of doubt that. But it's like,
yeah.
why do you do yoga? It's like, well, it's like it's about life.
Yeah. It's so true. You said that really well. Like, yeah, it's a hard thing to like explain in a couple of sentences because it's not just about one thing. It's really all encompassing, you know. It's like not to sound cheesy or anything, but like it really is mind, body, and soul, if you will, right? And just like that soul representing like how you feel and like in terms of like joy or like energetically, right? Like if you feel like fatigued and tired, like it's important to be able to like acknowledge those things in yourself and be like, even physically, like you said, be like, oh, I'm finally taking care of this injury after how long, and like I'm gonna make it my intention to do that. And I think that's what it's really about is like setting intentions to take care of yourself and like acknowledge where you're at, you know, and be like, all right, I'm gonna put myself first, or not first, but like going to take the time to try and understand myself and where I'm at, because it does make a difference in how you go into the rest of your life, whether
Mhm.
it's like to go train for a marathon, right? Like, can you go do that without healing yourself and taking care of that injury? Like, maybe, but would it be better if you just took care of that thing first and set aside, like, not to get into it, but too much, but like we talk about like the ego a lot too, right? Like the
Mhm.
ego is what makes you push through the pain and just be like, that doesn't matter. I'll deal with that later.
Yeah.
Like all that matters is that end goal. Kind of like, you know, the classic like tortoise and hare, you know, slow and steady. Like
Right.
sometimes you do have to press pause and reassess, like taking time off, right? From
Yeah.
school and stuff. Like it's, you know, taking time to meditate is maybe what makes you go, oh, shoot, yeah, like I don't really know what I want next. And I need to think about that before I make a move, right? So,
Well, yeah, that's the um I don't know what the correct word is, but that's the essence of life. It's like for some people they know they have a very clear um
path.
path they want to follow. It's like when they're young, they're like, I love this, I'm good at it. And you know, it just kind of snowballs and things go well for you. Personally, I never like in school, you know, teachers would say or adults would say or your friends would say like, oh, you have to figure out what you want to do, like what's your career. Like I don't know.
Oh,
uh I
yeah.
went in, I chose my to do engineering. I remember I was in high school, I was looking at a list of programs that Western offered, and I just scratched them off one by one. And the last one like, was engineering, and I was like, "Oh, this sounds hard. I mean, I bet that's good." It was way harder than I thought it was. I almost didn't make it a couple times, and
Yeah.
but my point is that like once I got the degree, I remember telling someone at the convocation or the graduation ceremony that yeah, I felt prouder of my grade 10 art project. It's like, you know, it's like you work so hard for this degree, you get it. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
what now? Um, anyway, that's kind of a long-winded way of saying if you live long enough, you and you don't have sometimes you question, it's like, what is the purpose? Is this fulfilling? That's kind of where I am. And it's funny you mentioned a marathon because I am training to run a half marathon this year.
Nice.
So uh like that I'm constantly going back and forth between uh I'm gonna push myself, you know, I don't care if anything hurts, let's just finish this run today.
Yeah.
And then another day it's like, okay, I did that yesterday. Today it's like, let's just figure some stuff out. So
Yeah.
it's a nice balance that I've managed to kind of figure out. Just getting a
Yeah.
very abstract conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. No, I totally get that, but striking balance is hard, you know, like striking a balance is not it's not an easy thing to do. Like naturally, you're probably going to want to go out and like run as hard as you can every day because that's what will make you feel strong, right? Not taking a day off to stretch, maybe.
Mm.
But in the long run, taking the day off might make you actually stronger, right? Taking care of yourself, like I guess letting yourself heal, giving your muscles time to recover. Those are all, important things. Like even for like weightlifters and stuff, they have to take days off too, muscle recovery, right? So yeah, I don't know
Um,
how we went down this.
well, it was basically yoga is life. I know, right? Like
Yoga is
there's this
life,
whole
yeah.
thing. So to kind of bring it back, so let's just go back to kind of your uh, classes. So like, how would you, for someone who is interested in trying out yoga, for now you're teaching online, but you will teach in person in the summer. Um, how would you describe your style for someone listening that's new or interested?
Yeah. Um, yeah, definitely very beginner friendly. Like all my students are um, people who have just started yoga in the last literally 2 years. And people that really have said, like, I would have never done yoga before. And they've been doing it since like day one with me. So, um, beginner friendly for sure. I always talk about like, the first couple classes. Like, I encourage people to do, like, not just come try one class because after the first class, you'll be like, oh my goodness, I don't know how I feel about that. All I feel is that like I really am not flexible.
Mm.
And that's like not a good feeling, right? So like most people leave a yoga class feeling like, ugh, I feel so tense. Like, and I don't know what any of those moves were. And so I'd just say like that would be my advice for anyone going to any yoga class is like commit to at least 6 classes. Like know you're going to go in and you're going to try it 6 times because by the 6th time you'll be like a little more comfortable and you might see what all the hype is all about.
Right.
You might know at that point that yoga is life. But
Yeah.
but my style, yeah, it's very beginner friendly. I teach pretty like, especially online. I tend to speak a little slower because um, just giving people time to process each cue that I'm speaking to. Like I've I've been in classes where it's like put your hands down on the mat, step back with your right foot, put your left knee down,
Oh,
and I'm like, whoa, I'm still putting my hands on the mat.
yeah.
So if for people who like a faster pace, I would say like you might not enjoy my class, you might be bored, but if you are interested in alignment and really taking the time in each posture to get to know it, um, then you might enjoy my classes. And then, like I said before, like I teach typical like hatha yoga, which is really just sort of, um, the generic poses that you would experience. So like the warrior ones and twos and threes, and we don't do like headstanding or anything like that or arm balancing. And then I'd say that the other most important thing about my style is like self-care, which is really, I say it on repeat, like pretty much anytime I go into a pose that might be a little more challenging, I just say like, if you're comfortable giving it a try, give it a try, but make sure you're taking care of yourself. So if you're experiencing any pain or like even just you're uncomfortable trying to balance, like just, come out of the pose and go to a pose that makes you feel good. Like and just be in that pose until we move on to the next thing. Um, and just to instruct, using blocks and blankets and stuff, which I think I mentioned before, like protecting your knees,
Mhm.
and really being just aware of getting to know your own body structure too. Um, so yeah, I tend to talk more about stuff, like more about alignment and stuff, and that leads to being in the pose just a little bit longer. It's not just about like getting in as many postures in as you can. So I don't know if that was sort of I'm not sure if I articulated that well or clearly. But yeah, that I would say in a roundabout, zigzaggy kind of way, that's my style.
Yeah, it's to summarize, it's a beginner friendly, kind of slow, controlled, focused on alignment, and just to kind of ease you into a practice. It's like stepping your toe into the water instead of just jumping right in.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's just like a little taste of yoga. And, the expectation isn't that you like have to come to class and have this crazy goal of being super flexible, right? It's just, come to yoga because, do what you can that makes you feel good, because yoga really is sort of a long game. Flexibility is really all about consistency in your practice, and like really, if you want really good flexibility, you'd have to do it every single day, right? So
Mhm.
um, and that's not necessarily obtainable for most people. Like, life is busy, and not everybody has even 15 minutes a day to stretch, um, and give themselves that time. So I like to make it accessible in that sense, to say, like, you might only be coming to your mat once or twice a week, but like that's your time, to just do what you can for yourself, no matter what the end goal is. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that was a lot of yoga talk. I don't really know where else to go with that. So, is there something else you wanted to talk about, like before? Yeah, is there anything else?
I don't think so. I mean, did you get everything that you are hoping to get? Like, I'm not sure. Like, if you,
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you kind of touched on work-life balance. Sounds like you have a good balance, so I don't really have anything to probe into that because you're enjoying your time in sales at 3M, as well as doing this as your passion project. So that's obviously going well, it sounds like.
yeah, I mean, absolutely. I guess, like, it's not like it's always been great, like I haven't always had that balance. I'd say the one thing about the pandemic was like going to work from home is really what allowed me to have that extra time to do that, right? Like,
Mhm.
before work from home, I would have been driving to work like for 30 minutes in the morning, coming home 30 minutes at night. I think, that's been my silver lining from the pandemic, is that like the work from home situation has really given back some time, like just enough time to be able to say, like, okay, I can invite people into my space to share yoga with them at the end of the day. And I don't have to like worry about rushing to get home. um,
Mhm.
it has been like really, really great, in that sense, um, that the
Cool.
shift in that work style has allowed me to sort of achieve the place I'm in now. So yeah, I mean, that's been nice. But before that, like, I don't think I would have been I don't think I would have had the same balance that I have now. That's for sure. It definitely
Right.
would be
Yeah,
harder.
because your life was busier. You were sounds like with all that commute time of half an hour each way, your time is restricted. It's like it's a whole different vibe working from home. I presume. I mean, I haven't really done it, but I have family members who do. So yeah, that makes sense, I think.
Yeah, just like I think the stress of getting from one place, like from one place to the next, just to, log into a computer and, you know, do what you could have done on a computer at home. Like
Right.
there are some things that obviously like you miss from being in the office and stuff, like seeing work friends and stuff daily.
Mhm.
Like that's a huge change and shift in culture, like work culture. But I mean, just from a personal perspective, it's like, wow, okay, it's easier to compartmentalize and be like, okay, work is work, and I can still, I don't necessarily have to be somewhere else to do my job, which makes it easier to take care of myself and maybe like achieve some other things in the day as well, right? So, yeah, it's kind of cool in that sense.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where that's going to go after the pandemic is long, like over, after it's over for a while.
Yeah.
A lot of people, for example, my sister is an accountant, so a lot of what she does can be done from home,
Yeah.
unless you're auditing a client or something. If you have to audit, you have to be at that client's office. So yeah, it's kind of weird because a lot of people can do what they do normally from home. I Yeah, I'm not really a fan of. I like going to an office because
Yeah.
if I'm at home, if I'm in my room, I'm looking around. I'm like, oh, I got to read that book. I gotta clean that. That shouldn't be on the floor. But if you're in a whole different space, it's like, okay, I can forget
Yeah.
about everything at home. Let's just worry about you know whoever like took the last coffee pot or something.
It's true. Yeah. I like I do miss just going to my desk at work like every once in a while. It is nice to be able to have that change of space, right? Um, we're lucky enough, like Carson and I, my boyfriend, we have our own office space each. Um, so like that makes it nice to be able to like, we were able to like go into our own space during the day. And like I know some people that were both working from home struggled with that too, right? Just not having enough space between workstations. Like, you're both in the same room on a Zoom call and it's like really distracting, or you go
Yeah.
off mute to say something and you're hearing the other person's meeting, right? So it's like we were really lucky in that sense that we just had the space to be able to comfortably make that transition, but not to say that it was easy. Like
Mhm.
it's definitely different, right? But now we're used to it because it's been 2 years. So yeah,
Yeah, that's nice having a separate space because
yeah,
you kind of simulate the office. It's like when I'm in here, I'm working. If I'm not in here, I'm not working. And
yeah,
that's really all you need. That's basically what happens when you go to the office. So, yeah, that's excellent
yeah.
that you guys
Just
have
having
kind of
some kind
found
of
a way.
separation. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, this year has been weird so far. I hope the pandemic ends officially soon. It sounds like things are opening up anyway.
I know. Yeah, it's
And
nice.
and yeah, I am actively looking for work. So, but if I am around in London this summer, I guess I'll sign up for a couple of classes
Yeah, that'd be
and see
awesome.
what happens.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Let me know. That'd be great.
I'm gonna write that down because otherwise I'll forget. But yeah, that's kind of I kind of went through all my notes, so yeah, so that's basically all I have. It's
Yeah.
like whatever.
So like
Um,
what are you doing now? You said you were working at Chapters. Now,
I
but I saw
was,
that you're done there on Instagram. So are you doing something different now or
um, yeah, I was working at Chapters for the fall, and then my contract ended last month. So I'm at a stage where I need work, so I'm looking for jobs. I mentioned earlier, I have a background in engineering. I'm, I would say I'm a good technical writer, so I'm looking for that kind of job where I can come in and maybe like create manuals or troubleshooting guides, stuff like that. I know I can do that well. I have an interest in engineering, but it's not really like programming and designing stuff. It's not really my strong suit, so I'm kind of moving away from that. And at the same time, I have this podcast, which is more of a fun project. No plans to monetize it. I don't have the viewers for that anyway. So this year, focusing on one episode a week, kind of learn how to do that. It will help with interviewing skills. Um, I also want to become a better speaker, so this is a good opportunity to practice talking.
yeah.
I have that going on. Planning to do a half marathon this year, sometime in early summer. So that's going on. I'm just keeping busy because, like, I don't know. It's keeping busy is a good um, band aid for constantly doubting. It's like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't have a job. There's no good jobs. I've applied to so many jobs. Where's the next one coming from? So it's balancing that, like, uh, mental doubt at night with keeping busy during the day.
Yeah.
And then if I do a really hard workout, I have like a period of intense relaxation where I'm like, oh, everything's okay. It's not.
Yeah. Well,
That's
that's
kind of where
good
I'm
though,
at.
actually. Like, I mean, I think, lots of people looking for work is like the hardest thing. And not just looking for, a job, but like looking for a job that you're going to really enjoy, like at a company you're really going to enjoy working for. And it takes like a long time to figure that out sometimes. And
Yeah.
it's tough, like the in between, right? It's kind of like a limbo, like where you're just like, oh my God, like you said, the doubt, what's next, and what am I doing?
Yeah,
So
I've
it's amazing that you can still stay motivated to like go and run like as much as you do and train for a half marathon. Like I would be like such a bum. I don't even know if I would be able to do yoga. I would just be like, I'm gonna be on the couch now.
Mhm.
So I mean, not that you need to hear me say this, but I think that you should be proud of yourself for continuing to like have a podcast and connect with people that you haven't seen in ages. Like that's crazy. It's cool and um, I love it. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. It's yeah, life can be long and life can be short. If it's gonna be short, you might as well maximize it. And if it's gonna be long, you have to kind of sit in the doubt and figure out what's gonna fulfill you. Um, and you only learn. I mean, I have learned from basically it's I'm trying to transition from being practical to trying to squeeze every ounce out of my life. So being practical meaning when I did engineering, it was like this makes sense. You get a good salary, you can be comfortable, you can uh have a family, do whatever. But then I figured out it's like uh this is kind of like it's great, but what
Yeah.
else is there out there? So
Yeah. It's not
yeah.
everything. Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Yeah.
Mhm.
Finding more meaning. It's
Yeah, you have
you
to
know,
create that meaning. And for me, a physical challenge is a great way, and it's also a good antidote to doubt. If you tire yourself out so much, it's like you're too tired to think it's about anything. Like you said, it's like, you just kind of lie on the couch if you've kind of run a lot or something like that. So
yeah.
overall, it's just it's a long game, or at least that's the way I look at it. I don't know for sure life is a long game because anything can happen, any catastrophe or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, you gotta keep on keeping on, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was talking with a friend last night about it, about kind of life in that sense. Like, life can't be just a bunch of big moments, like big moments happen, and like kind of like graduation, like you're proud of that, it's great, but like you can't have that every single day, right? Like so I mean, kind of, I guess, like exercise or like going and challenging yourself physically can kind of give you that like satisfaction of achieving a
Mm.
goal and tiring you out, but like giving you a sense of achievement, which is really, really awesome. But like also being okay to be like, um, like content with the simple things and being appreciative and grateful for like, just like your family, or like the fact that it's a sunny day, or kind of just, it sounds so cheesy, but like being able to look out the window and be like, yeah, life is good, I'm here in a home that has heat on, and
Yeah.
like it's okay to be happy, with things being simple, right? And I mean, easy to say when things are good, but like being able to look at the good in everything, or each moment, no matter what, I think that helps people like keep on keeping on, like you said.
It's funny because um, if you think about asking someone, oh, like if someone's really ecstatic and joyful, like, your tendency is to, or generally speaking, someone might say, "Why are you so happy today?" But like you look at small kids, like it's just their normal state.
Yeah.
So I've heard this before in many places where it's like as you grow older, that for a lot of people, the default of happy becomes a rarity.
Yeah.
And that's some people say that's just a result of just being human because you're at least in, I guess it depends how you grow up, but in the way I grew up here in London and throughout my jobs in Ontario, it's the vibe, the culture is kind of like, what are you doing? What are you trying to achieve? But if that's the way that you use your uh, brain all the time, it's not a surprise that when you want to shut it off, that's how your brain goes. It's like it's momentum, right? Like um, if you're driving a car and you crash into something, like the momentum keeps pushing you in that direction. That's how accidents are so terrible. So it's kind of a roundabout way of saying if you keep using your brain in the same way, when you want to shut it off, it's not so easy. And that kind of brings it back to meditation. It's a way to step back.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and like meditation is cool. It basically like helps you to like rewire your brain and your thinking patterns. And, by human nature, it's easy to just kind of like fall into, I think sometimes people are naturally just like positive thinkers, like, or just have that natural, like, I don't know, everything's good all the time kind of
Yeah.
thing. And like not everybody has that, right? And I think that's just a subject to like life experiences. You put up walls and barriers, and you start to be a little more cynical I think, with age sometimes, because you're like,
Yeah.
things happen, right? How do you go, okay, well, that happened, but it's not going to happen again, right? It's like, that's why children lose that kind of, I guess, carefree, jovial, for no reason thing, because they learn lessons, friends say mean things, and right, you go to school and have a bad day or whatever.
Yeah.
Life happens. But yeah, meditation is so cool because it can really help with that. Like creating a mantra for yourself is super fascinating. Doesn't necessarily have to be like Om or like any of the other ones that are out there, but like um, a lady, we had a guest speaker at work recently, and her, one of her mantras was like, I can do hard things.
Mm.
And this was something her mom had said to her, like when she was a kid, after some kind of experience. And she said, just remember that you can do hard things. And then this woman was like in a horrible car accident where she had gone off the road into like ice water or something. And like, so her car had crashed through the ice. She was underwater, and she was sitting there, and she's like, I wasn't panicking or anything, but like, I just knew I had a choice. And it was either like, I try something and I live, or I'm going to just die here. And she ended up getting out and swimming up, and like she didn't know where to go when she got out of the car, so she just like exhaled and said she followed her bubbles. So like, but she obviously, she never been in that situation before, but she just instinctively, you know, knew what to do, I guess, at that point. And then ended up getting up onto the ice, and somebody had seen her car tracks and gone out to save her. But anyways, what she was thinking in that moment was of her mom saying like, okay, you can do hard things. She's like, okay, I can do hard things. And it's kind of like, well, that's probably I guess, part of that nurturing experience. Her mom sort of put that mantra into her head for her, right? But now that's such a significant thing for her, to the point where it saved her life in a moment of like, she could either have had serious self doubt and just stayed where she was, or followed the mantra. And she did. So it's pretty powerful if you think about it.
That is definitely a very powerful example,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's yeah, how you um approach things will kind of determine what you can or can't do. Just the fact that you believe you can do it. It's like there was no guarantee she was gonna make it, but like you even said, it's like either I do something or I don't. Might as well do something. But
Yeah.
even that simple decision is not so clear when you're in a situation that is fight or flight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you don't know the outcome. You don't know the outcome.
That's that's one of the scariest, not scariest, but one of the reasons not knowing the outcome is one of the reasons that's where doubt comes from. And
Yeah.
it's like
Uncertainty. Yeah.
I'm not used to it, but I'm gonna try to kind of sit with it because it sucks, but that's also like I've heard this phrase before. The phrase "I don't know" is uh is an opportunity. It's like if you so just as like a philosophical argument, if you know everything, there's no need for you to pay attention to anything.
Yeah.
If you don't know stuff, or if you acknowledge that in your whole lifetime you won't, whatever you learn or experience will be a smallest fraction of what is possible, you're always going to be paying attention. um, in that way, not knowing what's coming next is a great opportunity to innovate, or for me to find a business idea, hopefully. um, but it also sucks. So hopefully it won't crush me, but we'll see.
You'll figure it out. It'll come when you least expect it, or, maybe you're like moved on to something else and then, it shows up in its own way at some point. Um, but I feel like this may sound really cheesy, but you might like doing like a vision board or something. I don't know if you're into that, but
No,
I
it's not for me. But
you're
like,
not a
if
vision.
has that worked for you?
Honestly, yeah, like it has. It's like just a, I don't know, a visual thing. Even if you just do it and then you put it away somewhere, like it's not like you have to have it on your wall all the time. Some people do, but um, I guess you could do the same thing, just like writing stuff out though. Like you don't necessarily have to have pictures and do like a whole collage, like a grade 6 art project. but
Oh,
but like if you wanted, you can just like write out what your goals are and stuff. And like um I've always been really big into like journaling. So I
right.
kind of do it in that way too, which is super helpful. But yeah, even like with yoga, like years ago, I wrote down like I want to do my yoga instructor certification, and like sure enough, you know,
Mm.
it's kind of
Yeah.
like you write it down, you hold yourself accountable. Like, oh, I wanna have a business one day. I don't know what that looks like, but
Mhm.
I wanna do that.
No, that makes sense. That's an interesting topic. Um, we can kind of wrap it up around like after that, but basically, there's kind of two approaches I take to that. First of all, having a vision board is not ideal for me because I have had like getting that engineering degree. It's like that's what I'm gonna do. That's one example of a couple of others where it's like I had a goal, I achieved it, but so what? So personally, I don't trust in my own ambitions because they haven't fulfilled me when I've met them. But with that being said, that works for me on a general level. Like, for example, me deciding I'm going to release one episode of this podcast every week for a year. It's a short time frame. I know I'm going to do it. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. So it's like I have a goal, but there's so much variability. So that's nice. Or for like, for example, very vaguely saying, I want to do something fulfilling. I don't have to remind myself that because I inherently feel like that's something I value. So inherently, without even thinking about it, I'm going to be looking for those opportunities. Finding them is tough, but if I see it, I sure hope I act on it. So that's like that perspective of setting a goal or having a vision board. And another way I'm kind of pushing myself is I basically like feeling guilty. So I do right. I always have an ongoing to-do list and I love crossing things off. And sometimes it takes months. So like every month I'll rewrite my items and cross it off from the previous month. So for example, I have this cast iron pan. I don't know how to clean it and I've tried a couple of times. It's still not working, but I'm going to try it again this week. So every month I rewrite clean the pan. And after I rewriting that 3 or 4 times, I'm like, this is annoying. I should really just get this done. So it's like having those small to-do list goals that you have to do, and you're the one who wants to do it. So if you feel guilty, it's your own fault. So that's, I guess, a way of holding myself accountable. But that's the way of taking small steps for me, which works well.
Yeah, that's nice. It's kind of the same thing, ongoing to-do
Yeah.
list, right? It's like, okay, I have to take care of this at some point or do something to like take an initiative towards it. Otherwise, you're just gonna feel like, ugh, why haven't I done that yet? You know?
What is wrong with me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh, that's cool.
So yeah. Um, yeah. So I guess we can end there. Thanks again. This was a really good chat. It's like we for a Zoom chat, it was pretty. I don't know what's the word. Like it's one of those conversations I have with friends that gets abstract really quickly, but it's something to think about, and it's like
Yeah,
valuable later on.
yeah. That's great. I'm glad. I was like thinking, I'm like, oh man, I hope I'm not just saying the most ridiculous things right now and that, this makes sense. But yeah, it's nice to just chat. I enjoyed it too. It kind of just felt like a nice little chat with any one of my friends that I would have normally. So
Excellent.
it's cool catching up with you, Akshay. Honestly, yeah. I look forward to
Yeah.
hearing about how you're doing and I don't know, whenever, and seeing how your podcast grows. Like, you never
Mhm.
know, right? Like,
Yes. I hope so.
after,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, like, after a year of posting like one video a week, who knows? Like, you might slowly get more viewers and stuff. And it just, those things take time.
Yes. Um, I do monthly Instagram posts, just kind of summarizing what's going on in the month. So if you're interested, that's always there, usually around the end of the month. Um, but yeah, before we kind of end it off, is there anything else you wanted to add about anything? I think we already covered all of your, um, like all the stuff about your teaching and everything. So I think we're
Yeah,
good.
I think we talked about pretty much like all the questions that you had sort of
Yeah.
prepped, and other things within that. um, yeah, no, I think maybe, I guess a question for you would be like, I think you can relate is like sometimes, especially like with social media and like trying to have an online presence and like reach out to people that um, you haven't seen in literally a lifetime and like just I guess sharing like the value that you want to add. Like I find it so hard to be like not authentic, but like I just think there's so much stuff out on Instagram and like on social media that it's like how do you even be, unique anymore on when you're
Mhm.
posting? And like, do you feel like that pressure of like when you're doing your podcasts, do you feel like you should post more about it? Or like, do you feel that as you try to sort of build awareness for for your YouTube channel or
Um, well, there's no pressure because I don't have an audience demanding anything. So I'm kind of at that stage where I have to build my own habits, which are going to play a part should this become successful. So, uh, as far as so specifically Instagram, which is what I use mostly, you're right. There's so much content. Sorry, there's so much content, and nothing is unique. Um, but what is unique is for me, it has like it's something that I'm doing. So I'm the one who's posting something. So what I try to do is if I'm writing a caption, uh, I don't want to focus on writing something that will get the most eyeballs. Like that's in my mind, but the first thing is like, is this how I would write? Like, does this feel normal, or am I like trying to add a spin to it or something?
yeah,
That's a whole nother conversation. Like, how do you write for social media? But I try to approach it like um, I try to make it as um like I don't know how to explain it. Like, is this a photo I would take normally? Is this am I just taking it? I don't want to use the word authentic, but that's the only one that comes to mind. It's like,
I know. Yeah,
am
yeah.
I trying too hard? Like it should be a
Yeah.
good mix of something I've done before and something I'm trying out. So for example, um, what would be too much? Like if I just started recording a video and like put on a voice like, hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm on a run. Like
Hey, actually, that's great.
No, but that's like so different from how I
Yeah.
talk normally, that I personally don't want to have a character.
Yeah,
For
I
me,
know.
it's like how how can I project the most real version of how I am in real life? So that's one thing. And then as far as being unique, it's really weird from being a consumer to like a poster on Instagram. Like when I go through an Instagram feed, like I don't spend like half the amount of time when I'm posting, just going through people's feeds. It's usually like, oh, picture, nice, like, move on to the next one, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I just remember that like it doesn't matter how many followers there are. It's like I'm not trying to have a following. It's like whoever is there, specifically people I know, because most of my followers are like um, classmates or colleagues or stuff like that. It's like if they happen to be interested, what would they want to know? Like I'm always interested in knowing what people are up to, and that's how I found out about your yoga practice. It's like that's cool. I like talking to people. I like having conversations. If I invite Natalie on the podcast, it's great for me. I have another episode. It's a great conversation. It's great for her because um, I'm gonna share about her business, her experience, and maybe someone will be interested and figure out how to or like get in touch with you. So it's
Yeah.
a really not specific answer. I'm trying to cover so many things, but yeah, those are some things I kind of think about when I'm posting.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot. Like I'm like I think you said the having a character. I feel like I just am like, oh, do I have to have a character to be on here and sharing? And because, they're like people who are on and very actively sharing. Like I don't think I share too actively. I might have at first when I first started. Now I do every once in a while, but because I want to share, what's valuable or, just like reminders that I'm doing classes and stuff. But um, yeah, I don't can't see myself going on like a live, like a Instagram live and being like, hey guys, like today I'm going to talk
It's
to you about yoga and what I love about it and why you should do it. Like I just can't.
yeah.
Even like this is totally outside my comfort zone, like being on a podcast. I'm like
Okay.
I I think that's why I asked you too, like, oh, are you like asking questions like how does this work? Because I'm like, I don't know what I would say. And, sometimes my thoughts tend to be very abstract, like this conversation. So I end up all over the place, which is a good thing, right? Like it just kind of
Yes.
leaves the conversation open to whatever comes and like whatever we see kind of the same in a way.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, this has been really great. Like I really enjoyed it, Akshay, and you've given me the opportunity to do something that isn't something that I would, you know, put myself out there to do just on my own. So thanks for that. That's really great.
Anytime. This is Row Talk.